The truth nobody wants to hear. There's a truth that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. A truth so simple, so raw, and so brutally honest that the moment you hear it, something inside you either ignites or runs. You cannot become powerful in a crowd. You cannot find yourself while you're lost in the noise. You cannot hear your own voice when you're drowning in everyone else's opinions. You cannot reach your full potential while constantly looking over your shoulder for someone else's approval. This is one of the hardest truths about the human condition, but it's also one of the most liberating. So, let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest, not with me, but with yourself. How many people do you consult before making a single decision? How many times a day do you open your phone to check what someone else is doing, thinking, posting? How many hours each week do you spend watching other people's lives play out on a screen while your own life sits quietly on pause? What's the very first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Do you reach for your phone, or do you reach for yourself? The answers might sting, because the truth is, most of us are living on autopilot. We're drifting through our days on a current created by someone else. Every scroll, every like, every comment, pulling us further from who we actually are. And the further we drift, the more exhausted, confused, and powerless we become. That's why you feel stuck. That's why you feel like you're always one step behind. That's why you're constantly chasing validation from people who haven't figured out their own lives. That's why at the end of most days you collapse into bed wondering where the time went and what you actually did with it. But today, everything can change, because today I'm giving you 12 laws, not motivational platitudes, not recycled self-help cliches. These are time-tested principles, battle-hardened by history's greatest minds and quietly practiced by the world's most powerful people. These laws will feel uncomfortable. They're supposed to. Growth always does. But will they work? Absolutely, without question. The most powerful version of yourself is not built in applause. It's not built in crowded rooms or Instagram comment sections or group chats at midnight. The most powerful version of yourself is built in solitude, in the hours when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when you're working alone in the dark, and the only thing keeping you moving is the fire inside you. History has always known this. Abraham Lincoln spent years in near-total isolation, devouring every book he could find, while the world slept around him. He had no formal education, no wealthy family, no political connections. What he had was solitude and the discipline to use it. Those lonely years didn't break him. They forged him. Nikola Tesla worked alone through the night after night, not because he had to, but because he understood something most people miss entirely. Real breakthroughs require real silence. His greatest ideas didn't come in meetings. They didn't come from collaboration. They came from the shadows, in the depth of his focused, solitary work. And in the modern era, the same truth holds. The entrepreneurs who built empires didn't build them on live streams. They built them in garages, in studios, in quiet rooms at 3 a.m. when everyone else was asleep and comfortable. This book is your manifesto, your map, your weapon. It will show you that real power comes from within, the kind no one can give you and no one can take, the kind that doesn't need an audience, the kind that doesn't require permission. Are you ready? Because after these 12 laws, the scoreboard changes. You stop asking for approval. You stop waiting for someone else to give you the green light. You stand in your own strength. And from that place, you discover what real freedom actually feels like. This journey isn't easy, but it's worth it. Every law will sharpen you. Every principle will free you. Every application will transform you. Let's begin. Law 1. Stop outsourcing your power. You're waiting for permission. You may not realize it. Most people don't. But it's there, woven into almost every decision you make. You want your family to approve. You want your friends to validate. You want strangers on the internet to confirm that the path you're choosing is the right one. And until they do, you hesitate. Every time you pause before a decision to ask, "But what will they think?" you're handing over a piece of your power. Every time you hold off on a dream because someone in your life hasn't given you their blessing, you're putting your future in someone else's hands. Every time you shrink yourself to fit another person's comfort zone, you are choosing their version of your life over your own. This is the first law, and it's non-negotiable. Stop outsourcing your power to the crowd. Because the crowd? The crowd has never built anything great. The crowd moves toward comfort, consensus, and the familiar. The crowd penalizes ambition and celebrates mediocrity. And the crowd will absolutely, without hesitation, tell you that what you're dreaming is impossible, not because they've tested it, but because they never had the courage to try. Think about what that means for you, the people whose opinions you're waiting on. What have they built? What have they risked? What giants have they slain? In most cases, the people whose approval we desperately seek are themselves stuck, afraid, and quietly resentful of anyone who dares to want more. Their criticism isn't a verdict, it's a confession. When people see you growing, they feel uncomfortable because your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. When you take a risk they were too afraid to take, you disturb something in them. That discomfort comes out as doubt, mockery, or unsolicited warnings, all dressed up to look like concern. Don't be fooled. Their limits are not your limits. Their fears are not your facts. Their average is not your ceiling. Think of an eagle. The eagle doesn't look down at the sparrows and wait for their approval before it spreads its wings. It doesn't call a committee meeting before deciding to fly. It doesn't ask whether the other birds think the wind is favorable. It simply opens its wings and rises, alone, upward, without explanation. Now think of a flock of birds on a wire, each one waiting for the next to move first. No one moves until someone else moves. No one acts without someone else acting. The entire flock is held in place by collective hesitation. Which one are you? Here's the uncomfortable truth about crowds. They don't reward greatness. They reward conformity. Every major breakthrough in human history, scientific, artistic, political, technological, was ridiculed before it was celebrated. When Henry Ford said he could put a car in every American driveway, he was laughed out of rooms. When Oprah Winfrey was told she was unfit for television, she could have listened, and the world would have lost one of the most powerful voices of a generation. When Sylvester Stallone was rejected 1,500 times trying to sell his Rocky script, every single person who told him no was wrong, and his refusal to accept their verdict turned into one of the greatest underdog stories ever told. The pattern is always the same. The crowd says no. The individual presses forward. History sides with the individual. But let me be clear about what this law is not saying. This is not about becoming cold, isolated, or indifferent to the people in your life. You can love people deeply and still refuse to let their fears determine your direction. You can respect mentors and still make your own final call. You can listen without obeying. The difference between consulting and outsourcing is everything. Consulting means gathering information and then deciding for yourself. Outsourcing means handing the decision to someone else entirely. How to apply Law 1, starting today. Make one decision this week with zero external input. It doesn't have to be monumental. What you eat, which route you take to work, which book you read next. The size of the decision doesn't matter. What matters is that you make it, fully, consciously, and by yourself. Every small decision trains your brain to trust itself. Create a gap between an impulse to share and actually sharing. You had a win today? Good. Sit with it. Feel it. Let it live inside you before you broadcast it. You'll notice something powerful. When the validation doesn't come, the win still feels real. That's the beginning of inner authority. The next time you catch yourself asking, "What will they say?" Stop. Replace that question with three others. What do I actually want? What are my values pointing toward? What does my gut already know? Make a list. Think honestly about the people in your life who drain your ambition, who always find the problem, the risk, the reason it won't work. Limit your exposure, not with cruelty, but with clarity. Protect your vision the way a gardener protects a seedling from frost. 30 days. Spend 30 days making your own calls. Small ones, big ones, all of them. At the end of those 30 days, you won't feel lonely. You'll feel clean. You'll feel the quiet satisfaction of someone who has reclaimed their own steering wheel. The day you stop outsourcing your power is the day you begin to build something that no one can take from you. No job loss, no breakup, no social rejection can shake the person who has learned to trust themselves. Their foundation isn't built on the opinions of others. It's built on something far more durable, their own inner authority. That's where real power begins. Law 2. Build your empire in silence. Look at your phone right now. Count how many apps are designed to get you to announce yourself. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Snapchat. Every platform is essentially asking the same question 24 hours a day, in a dozen different formats. What are you doing? Tell everyone. Show everyone. Post it now. And we comply. We announce our goals before we've taken a single step. We reveal our projects before they're half built. We broadcast our transformations before they've even begun. And then, nothing. The momentum evaporates. The dream stays a dream. The goal becomes another caption. Here's the uncomfortable science behind why this happens. In a landmark study at New York University, psychologist Dr. Peter Gollwitzer divided participants into two groups. One group announced their goals publicly. The other kept their goals entirely private. The results were stark. The people who announced their goals were significantly less likely to achieve them. Why? Because the brain doesn't distinguish between talking about doing something and actually doing it. The moment you tell someone your plan, your brain releases dopamine, the same reward chemical it releases when you actually complete a task. You get the feeling of accomplishment without the accomplishment. The engine gets its fuel before the car even moves. You've experienced this. You announced you were going to wake up at 5 a.m., start the business, write the book, transform your body. And people responded with encouragement, excitement, support. It felt good. It felt real. And then, you didn't do it, because your brain had already cashed the check. Law 2 is this. Build your empire in silence. The most dangerous weapon you have is not your talent, not your connections, not your resources. It's your focus, and focus is destroyed by premature announcement. Every great structure in history was built in obscurity before it was visible to the world. The foundation is laid underground where no one can see it. The roots run deep in the dark before the tree breaks through the surface. And if you pull the seed out of the soil every 3 days to show people how it's growing, it never grows. Think about the most consequential builders of the modern era. They didn't build their legacies on live streams. Howard Hughes locked himself in darkened screening rooms for weeks at a time, engineering aircraft with obsessive private focus. Andrew Carnegie ran his steel operations with such strategic silence that competitors constantly underestimated him, until it was far too late. Jeff Bezos spent years building Amazon's infrastructure without ever explaining his full vision publicly. By the time the world understood what he was doing, it was already done. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Silence is the compound interest of focus. It accumulates in the dark, invisible, and powerful until the day it's unleashed. The world is full of talkers, noisy, enthusiastic, constantly announcing talkers who are always about to do something remarkable. The most dangerous people in any room are the ones who are quietly already doing it. Be the quietest person in the room and do the loudest work. How to apply Law 2. Starting today, get a notebook, write your goals in it. Every detail, the vision, the timeline, the metrics. Then close it, put it somewhere safe, and tell no one. That notebook is your private contract. Honor it. Practice the 80% rule. Don't reveal a project until it's at least 80% complete. At that point, the momentum is real, the foundation is solid, and nothing anyone says can stop you. Before that point, silence. Delete the apps or set strict time locks. Not forever, just long enough to break the announcement habit. 30 days without posting your process will shock you with how much more of it you actually complete. When someone asks what you're working on, practice the most powerful 2-word answer in your arsenal: a lot. Then smile and change the subject. Build the habit of celebrating privately. You hit a milestone? Pour a good cup of coffee. Go for a long walk. Sit with the satisfaction of a person who knows their worth without needing to post it. This is a rare and powerful skill, and most people never develop it. Build in silence. Emerge in power. This is Law 2. Law 3. Claim your sacred hour. Every single day, you are everyone's resource. Your boss owns your mornings. Your family owns your evenings. Your phone owns every gap in between. Notifications pull at you from every direction: texts, emails, alerts, requests. A relentless tide of other people's needs flooding every hour of your day. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, you disappeared. You wake up already behind. You fall asleep already overwhelmed. And at the end of most days, if someone asked you what you did for yourself, genuinely, meaningfully, for your own growth, the honest answer is nothing. This is not a time problem. This is a priority problem. You have time. Everyone has time. What you don't have is a line you've drawn in, the sand that says, "This hour is mine." It is not negotiable. It is not for sale. Law 3. Claim your sacred hour every single day. 1 hour, 60 minutes, 3,600 seconds. Not for your employer, not for your family, not for your friends or your followers or your feed, just for you, for your mind, your vision, your future. This hour is your laboratory, your training ground, your most important appointment of the day, and unlike every other appointment, this one never gets canceled. Benjamin Franklin structured his mornings with military precision. The first hours belonged entirely to what he called morning questions, deep thinking, reading, and planning. He didn't open the day by responding to the world. He opened the day by designing it. Maya Angelou didn't write at home, surrounded by family. She rented a small hotel room, plain walls, no art, no distractions, and arrived there every morning at 6:30 a.m. alone. That sacred space, that sacred hour, was where her greatest works were born. Not in inspiration, in discipline. And in the modern world, the same pattern repeats. The founders who build companies that change industries, the athletes who dominate their sports for decades, the writers, artists, scientists, and executives who perform at levels that seem almost supernatural, they all have one thing in common. They claimed the hours before the world could take them. Now, What should you actually do in your sacred hour? Read, not headlines, not tweets, books. Long-form ideas that take you somewhere your current thinking hasn't been. Reading is how you install new operating software into your brain. Warren Buffett estimates he spent the first several decades of his career reading 500 pages a day. Charlie Munger once said that the biggest advantage any person can give themselves is to read more than the people around them. Write your thoughts, your goals, your fears, your insights. Writing is thinking in slow motion. It forces your brain to clarify what it actually believes versus what it vaguely assumes. The act of putting words on paper converts confusion into clarity. John Adams kept a daily journal for decades. Charles Darwin wrote constantly, private notebooks full of half-formed ideas, questions, and observations. Work on the thing that matters most to you, the side project, the skill, the business you're quietly building. This is the hour where your future self gets constructed, one brick at a time, in the silence before the world makes its demands. Think, just think. No screens, no podcasts, no input. Sit with the questions that actually matter to your life. Where am I going? What am I building? What needs to change? Bill Gates famously takes think weeks, 2 weeks twice a year, where he retreats entirely to think, read, and process ideas away from the noise. Your version is a think hour, every single day. Move your body. Exercise, stretch, breathe. The brain and body are not separate. Systems. Physical movement increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for decision-making, focus, and self-control. The science is unambiguous. People who exercise consistently think more clearly and perform at higher levels across virtually every domain. How to apply Law 3, starting today. Wake up 1 hour earlier than you currently do. Not 2 hours, not 3. 1. Just 1 hour earlier before the demands begin. That's your hour. Protect it like your most important asset, because it is. When the alarm goes off, apply what Mel Robbins calls the 5-4-3-2-1 rule. Count backward from 5 the moment the alarm sounds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then physically move your body out of bed before your brain can negotiate. Create a physical space for this hour. A specific chair, a specific desk, a corner of a room, somewhere that is only for this work. Your brain responds to environmental cues. Over time, stepping into that space will automatically shift your mental state into focus mode. Turn your phone off, not silent, not face down, off, or lock it in another room. Research is clear. Even the presence of a smartphone on a desk, face down, silent, off, measurably reduces available cognitive capacity. Track your streak. Put a simple calendar on your wall. Every day you complete your sacred hour, mark it with a large X. Watch the chain grow. This is what Jerry Seinfeld called "Don't break the chain," one of the simplest and most effective behavior change systems ever documented. Do the math. 1 hour a day, 7 hours a week, 365 hours a year. In 365 hours, you can learn a programming language, write and publish a book, build a physical transformation, launch a business, claim it, guard it, never surrender it. Law 4. Stop running from silence. Move into it. You're afraid to be alone with yourself, not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because somewhere along the way, our culture taught you that silence is the enemy, that stillness is suspicious, that if you're not stimulated, connected, and entertained at all times, something must be wrong with you. So you fill every gap. Music the moment you wake, podcast in the car, TV on in the background, not because you're watching it, but because the silence feels threatening. Phone in hand at dinner, in the bathroom, in the 5-second gap between one thing and the next. Here's the painful truth underneath all that noise. You're not afraid of silence. You're afraid of what you'll hear in it. Because in silence, the questions you've been avoiding start asking themselves. The decisions you've been postponing surface. The life you've been living versus the life you actually want come into sharp, uncomfortable contrast. Law 4. Stop running from silence. Move into it. Because solitude isn't what the culture tells you it is. It's not loneliness. It's not failure. It's not a sign that you've been left behind or left out. Solitude is a practice, a deliberate, chosen state where you return to yourself with intention. And the people who have mastered it are some of the most powerful human beings who have ever walked this earth. There's a critical distinction that most people miss entirely. Being alone and feeling lonely are not the same thing. Feeling lonely is involuntary. It's the ache of disconnection, the pain of unwanted isolation. Being alone is a choice. It's the disciplined practice of stepping away from the noise to access something deeper. One is suffering, the other is strategy. Blaise Pascal, the 17th century French mathematician and philosopher, made an observation that has never stopped being true. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Henry David Thoreau didn't move to Walden Pond because he was rejected by society. He went deliberately, intentionally, to conduct what he called an experiment in essential living, to strip away the noise and discover what was actually real. What he found in those 2 years of solitude became one of the most influential books in American literature. Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant psychological minds of the 20th century, built a stone tower by the lake in Bollingen, Switzerland. No electricity, no running water, no visitors unless he invited them. He worked there alone for years. He called it his place of spiritual concentration. And from that concentrated solitude came ideas that reshaped how humanity understands itself. You cannot give what you have not developed, and development requires solitude. The tree that provides the most shade is the one whose roots go deepest. And roots don't grow in public. They grow in the dark, underground, where no one can see. Your deepest growth is happening, or waiting to happen, in exactly the same place. How to apply Law 4. Starting today. Choose 1 day per week for a solo day. No plans with other people. No social commitments. A full day, or as much of it as you can protect, without the noise of other people's needs and expectations. Just you, a walk, a book, your journal, your thoughts. Take solo walks, and take them without earbuds. No music, no podcasts, no audiobooks, just your footsteps, your breathing, the physical world around you. Studies from Stanford University have found that walking significantly increases creative output, and that the effect is strongest when the walk is taken without digital input. Eat alone occasionally, not every meal, but sometimes, deliberately, sit down to eat without a screen, without a companion, without background noise. Just you and the meal. The Japanese call this ichigo ichi. This moment, once. Practice stillness. Sit in a chair, or on the floor, or in a park. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Do nothing. No phone, no movement, no agenda. Just breathe and notice. The first few minutes will feel unbearable. That pressure is the very thing you're training yourself to tolerate. And once you tolerate it, something remarkable happens on the other side. Clarity. 30 days. Spend at least 30 minutes each day in intentional solitude. Not passively, but actively, consciously, purposefully alone. No inputs, just presence. At the end of 30 days, report back to yourself. How much did your clarity improve? How much more do you know about what you actually want? Law 5. Build the fortress. Protect your energy. Your energy is being stolen, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, invisibly, in small increments that add up to something devastating over the course of a week, a month, a year. And the worst part? Most of the theft is happening with your permission. The colleague who drops into your workspace every afternoon for 45 minutes to vent about everything wrong with the company. The friend who calls only when they're in crisis and never asks how you're doing. The family member whose negativity saturates every conversation. The social obligations you show up to not because you want to be there, but because you can't find a way to say no. By the time you reach the end of a typical day, your energy isn't just spent, it's been taken, and you have nothing left for yourself. Law 5. Build the fortress. Protect your energy. This law is not about becoming cold. It's not about withdrawing from relationships or refusing to be of service to people you love. It's about something far more fundamental, understanding that your energy is a finite, irreplaceable resource, and that how you allocate it determines what you are capable of becoming. You cannot pour from an empty vessel. This is not a metaphor. It's a biological reality. Cognitive resources deplete, emotional reserves exhaust, physical energy has limits, and when those limits are consistently violated, when you give more than you recover day after day, the result is not just tiredness, it's a gradual erosion of capacity, clarity, and ambition. The most effective people in the world are not the ones who say yes most often. They are the ones who have mastered the art of the strategic no. Warren Buffett has said plainly that the difference between successful people and truly extraordinary people is this. Extraordinary people say no to almost everything, not because they're selfish, but because they understand that attention is currency, and diluted attention produces diluted results. How to apply Law 5, starting today. Identify your energy drains. Make an honest list. Who, after spending time with them, consistently leaves you feeling worse than before? Who takes and rarely gives? Who brings chronic negativity into every interaction? This isn't judgment, it's inventory. Learn to say no, and stop apologizing for it. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I'm not available. Clean, clear, complete. No elaborate explanations, no guilt-laden justifications, just no. The people who respect you will accept it. The people who don't accept it are the ones the boundary was designed to protect you from. Establish communication windows. Not everyone needs access to you at all times. Designate specific hours when you're available for calls and messages. And outside of those hours, your phone is off. The world operated for thousands of years without instant access to individuals. Audit your social calendar. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Ask one question before agreeing to any social commitment. Am I genuinely excited about this, or am I just afraid to say no? If the honest answer is the latter, that's your answer. Set emotional limits too. You are not a therapist. You are not a 24-hour support hotline. You can care deeply about the people in your life without becoming responsible for managing their emotional states. I hear you, and that sounds really hard. I think you might benefit from talking to someone who can really help with this, is a complete, loving, boundaried response. The fortress is not a prison, it's a sanctuary. Inside it, you recover, you create, you become, build the walls, man the gates, decide who gets in. Law 6. Never reveal your process. Did something remarkable this morning. You woke up before the sun. You made your bed with military precision. You drank your water, moved your body, sat in silence, and opened your mind before the world had a chance to crowd it. By 7 a.m., you had already done more deliberate self-development than most people will do all week. And then, almost involuntarily, you reached for your phone. You crafted the caption. You posted the photo. Morning routine locked in. 5 a.m. gang rise up. The likes started coming. The comments followed. Inspiring. You're crushing it. Your brain lit up with the warm flood of social validation, and something invisible but critical began to dissolve. 3 days later, you slept until 7:30. A week after that, the routine was gone entirely. This is not a willpower failure. This is chemistry. Research pioneered by psychologist Dr. Gollwitzer consistently shows the same result. When you announce a self-improvement practice to others and receive positive social feedback, your brain registers the behavior as already completed. The dopamine hit from the approval signal is neurologically indistinguishable from the dopamine hit of actual achievement. Law 6. Never reveal your process. The most durably disciplined people in the world share one counterintuitive trait. They do their most important work in total obscurity, not for years waiting to be discovered, but by design, strategically, because they understand that the energy spent on announcing is energy subtracted from doing. Consider the story of Florence Griffith Joyner, Flo-Jo, who in 1988 shattered the world records in the 100 and 200 meters at the Seoul Olympics in performances so dominant they still haven't been matched over 3 decades later. The world saw those 10 seconds. What they didn't see were the years of pre-dawn training sessions conducted in near-total privacy. Flo-Jo didn't post her training. She showed up in the silence, did the work, and then emerged onto the world stage and made the impossible look effortless. Or consider John Steinbeck, who wrote East of Eden in near-total isolation. He told almost no one what he was working on. No publishing announcements, no excerpt previews, just daily, private, relentless work. When the novel appeared, it arrived as a complete, fully realized thing, not a leaked, half-built, publicly scrutinized work in progress. The world gets the result. The darkness gets the process. Every day you work in silence is a day your results grow larger than your reputation. How to apply Law 6. Starting today, keep your routines entirely private. If you're waking up early, don't announce it. If you're training, don't document it. If you're reading, building, creating, developing, don't share the process. The process is sacred. The moment you hand it to the audience, it starts performing for them instead of serving you. Remove performance from your self-development. The most corrosive thing social media has done to personal growth is turn it into content. People are no longer building themselves. They're filming themselves, building themselves. Documenting is not doing. Keep a private journal of your discipline. Every day, record what you did, the early wake-up, the workout, the focused work session, the chapter you read. Write it down. Acknowledge it to yourself. Celebrate it privately. This is your evidence file. When asked about your habits, default to brevity. I've been keeping a pretty consistent routine lately. That's a complete answer. You don't owe anyone a tour of your process. Your results will eventually speak clearly enough. Silent discipline is not about suffering in secret. It's about protecting the most valuable thing you have, the uncontaminated momentum of private, purposeful work. Guard it like your life depends on it, because your best life does. Law 7. Stop watching other people's movies. Here is an average morning in the life of someone who has not yet discovered these laws. The alarm goes off. Before both eyes are fully open, the phone is already in hand. Instagram first, scroll, scroll, scroll. Someone from high school just got promoted. A fitness influencer posted a body transformation. A travel blogger is somewhere in Portugal with a perfect cappuccino. A former colleague just launched a company that's already been featured in Forbes. 20 minutes gone. The day hasn't started. And already, without a single external word being spoken, a quiet but devastating message has been delivered to the brain. You are behind, you are less. You are not enough. Law 7. Stop watching other people's movies. Start directing your own. This law cuts straight to one of the defining psychological crises of the modern era, the epidemic of spectatorship. We have built an entire civilization of watchers, billions of people consuming the lives of other people, becoming experts in the journeys of strangers, while their own life, their own story, their own potential sits largely unexplored. Let's do the math honestly. The average American spends approximately 2 to 4 hours per day on social media platforms. Even at the conservative end, 2 hours? That's 14 hours a week, 60 hours a month, 730 hours per year. In 10 years, that's 7,300 hours spent consuming other people's curated highlights while your own uncurated, unfiltered, genuine life waited in the background. What would you have built with 7,300 hours? Social media comparison is not a neutral act. Research published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology has directly linked social media use to increased rates of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and social comparison distress. You are not imagining the way scrolling makes you feel worse about your own life. The mechanism is real, it's documented, and it operates whether you're conscious of it or not, because what you're seeing is not reality. You are watching a performance. Every post, every story, every highlight reel has been filtered, selected, curated, and published specifically because it presents the most favorable possible version of someone's life. You're comparing your unedited behind the scenes to their produced highlight reel, and then wondering why you come up short. Theodore Roosevelt called comparison the thief of joy. Applied to social media, it becomes something even more insidious. A joy thief that runs 24 hours a day, fits in your pocket, and has been algorithmically optimized to keep you engaged as long as possible. The algorithm is not on your side. It is built to maximize your time on the platform, because your time on the platform is how the platform makes money. You are the product. Your attention is the commodity. The most interesting movie you will ever watch is the one you're starring in, but you can only live it when you stop sitting in someone else's theater. How to apply Law 7. Starting today. Delete the apps. Not deactivate. Delete. Yes, you can reinstall them later. The barrier of reinstallation is often enough to break the compulsive reflex. If deletion feels too extreme, impose a 10-minute daily limit through your phone's screen time settings. 10 minutes is enough to maintain genuine connections. It is not enough for the passive, endless consumption that's costing you your potential. Implement a strict morning moratorium. The first hour of every day is a phone-free zone. No exceptions, not a quick check, not a fast scroll, nothing. The morning is when your brain is most neurologically primed for deep thinking and focused work. Replace watching with doing. For every category of content you currently consume, identify the corresponding action. You watch fitness content? Start training. You watch cooking videos? Start cooking. You watch entrepreneurship podcasts? Start building. The vicarious experience will never come close to the actual one. Define your own metrics. The most corrosive aspect of spectatorship is that it silently installs other people's definitions of success into your operating system. Sit down with a blank page and write what success actually looks like for you, not what it looks like on Instagram, not what your parents expected. What does your flourishing look like? 30-day content detox. Delete all social apps for 30 days. During those 30 days, track what you accomplish. At the end, before you reinstall anything, compare the 30 days with the apps to the 30 days without. The data will make the decision for you. Law 8. Become your own foundation. You are dependent on something you don't control. Maybe it's a paycheck from an employer who could eliminate your position tomorrow. Maybe it's a relationship whose continuation you cannot guarantee. Maybe it's the approval of people who could withdraw it at any moment, and whose withdrawal you've quietly decided would make you not okay. This is a dangerous way to build a life, not because those things are bad. Income, love, community are all genuinely valuable, but because when any external thing holds the structural weight of your inner stability, you are one loss away from collapse. Law 8. Become your own foundation. Self-reliance is not the same as self-isolation. You can love deeply and still not need someone the way a drowning person needs a life raft. The distinction is between choosing connection and requiring it to function. Self-reliance operates across 3 domains. Financial independence. This is not about being wealthy. It's about not being trapped. The person who has no financial reserves, no marketable skills outside their current role, no plan B, that person cannot make free choices. They cannot say no to a toxic workplace because they can't afford the gap. Financial dependency is the most common form of invisible imprisonment in modern life, and it is almost entirely preventable. Emotional independence. This is not about becoming emotionally unavailable. It's about locating the source of your well-being somewhere inside yourself, rather than exclusively in another person's behavior toward you. When your emotional state is entirely contingent on whether someone texts back, approves of your decision, or stays in your life, you have no emotional floor. Intellectual independence. Think for yourself, not contrarily, but actually forming your own views through your own reasoning, rather than inheriting them wholesale from authority figures, media narratives, or social groups. Read primary sources. Develop the practice of saying, "I don't know yet," and then actually finding out. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, in his landmark work, Anti-Fragile, identified the highest form of resilience, not merely surviving adversity, but growing stronger from it. The self-reliant person is anti-fragile. Loss doesn't destroy them. It reveals new resources. Change doesn't paralyze them. It activates adaptability. When your foundation is built inside yourself, nothing external can remove it. You were always your own foundation. You just haven't been building on it. Start now. How to apply Law 8, starting today. Build a 6-month emergency reserve, not a 6-month luxury fund, a 6-month survival fund. Rent, utilities, groceries, transportation. When that fund exists, your relationship to your employer changes fundamentally. Suddenly, no becomes available. Develop marketable skills independent of your current role. The economy shifts. Industries disappear. The person with transferable in-demand capabilities, clear communication, analytical thinking, technical literacy, creative problem-solving, is never without options. Eliminate debt aggressively. Every dollar of consumer debt is a dollar of future freedom pre-spent. Attack it with urgency. Go somewhere alone that you would typically only go with others. A restaurant, a movie, a museum, a long drive. Sit with the initial discomfort of unaccompanied experience and notice how quickly it softens into something unexpectedly spacious. You are enough company for yourself. Question the consensus. Not because consensus is always wrong, it's often right, but because you should be able to articulate why you hold the views you hold based on evidence and reasoning rather than social conformity. Law 9. Master the voice inside your head. There is a conversation happening inside you right now. It never stops. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning to the final seconds before sleep pulls you under, a voice is running, commenting, evaluating, narrating, judging, and the things that voice says to you day after day, hour after hour, in the privacy of your own mind, those things are shaping your life more powerfully than any external force ever could. So, let me ask you a direct question. What is that voice actually saying? When you look in the mirror before work, what's the first thought? When you make a mistake in front of colleagues, what's the immediate internal response? When you imagine pursuing the thing you genuinely want most, what does that voice tell you about whether you deserve it? For most people, the honest answer is devastating. You're not ready. You're not smart enough. You're not the kind of person who does things like that. Who do you think you are? If you heard another person speak to someone you loved the way your inner voice speaks to you on a bad day, you would intervene. You would call it what it is, cruelty, but because it comes from inside, we accept it. We assume it's true. We let it set the ceiling. Law 9. Master the voice inside your head. The National Science Foundation has published research suggesting that the average human mind generates somewhere between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts per day, and that the overwhelming majority of those thoughts are both repetitive and negative. Not because humans are fundamentally pessimistic, but because the brain evolved in an environment where threat detection was more urgent than opportunity recognition. You are, in a very real sense, running on software that was written for a different era. And like any outdated software, it needs to be updated. In a landmark series of studies at the University of Michigan, psychologist Ethan Kross found that people who refer to themselves in the third person during stressful self-reflection, "What should Marcus do here?" rather than "What should I do?" perform significantly better under pressure, regulate their emotions more effectively, and demonstrate substantially less anxiety. Carol Dweck's decades of research at Stanford University established the growth mindset concept. The internal dialogue of each mindset looks radically different. The fixed mindset voice says, "I can't do this." The growth mindset voice says, "I can't do this yet." One word, a universe of difference in outcome. And Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion at the University of Texas has demonstrated that people who speak to themselves with the same kindness they would offer a struggling friend are measurably more resilient, more motivated, and more likely to recover from failure. How you speak to yourself determines what you become capable of. Muhammad Ali said it plainly. It's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. How to apply Law 9. Starting today, begin with awareness. For the next 7 days, carry a small notebook. Every time you catch your inner voice delivering a negative verdict, "I can't," "I'm not good enough," "this won't work," write it down. Don't analyze it yet. Just catch it and record it. By the end of the week, you'll have a clear picture of the specific thought patterns running in the background. Use the thought-stopping technique. When a limiting thought surfaces, "I can't handle this," say the word "stop" out loud or firmly in your mind, then immediately replace the thought with a more accurate, more empowering alternative. Not a fantasy, not a lie, an accurate reframe. Develop a morning declaration practice. Before you leave the space of your sacred hour, spend 3 minutes in front of a mirror. Speak directly to yourself. State your strengths, your commitments, your identity as you are choosing to build it. Not who you were, who you are becoming. Practice self-compassion as a discipline. When you make a mistake, respond to yourself the way you would respond to someone you genuinely care about. A close friend calls you and says they made the same mistake you just made. What do you say? "That's hard. You tried. You'll learn from this." Now say that to yourself. Keep an evidence journal. Every evening, write down 3 things you did well that day. 3 specific things. On the days when the inner critic is loudest, when the voice is telling you that you're not making progress, you can open that journal and see the evidence. Concrete. Specific, undeniable. Law 10. Make your own calls. Every significant decision you've made in the last 5 years, how many of them were truly yours? Not influenced, not informed, but yours, made from the deepest knowing of your own values, your own vision, your own sense of what your life is for. Think honestly. The career path you're on, did you choose it or did you inherit it from someone else's expectations? The city you live in, is it where you want to be or where the path of least resistance deposited you? Most people, when they sit with this question long enough, arrive at a disturbing answer. A significant portion of their life has been built on other people's decisions, dressed up as their own. Law 10. Make your own calls. This law is about something more fundamental than decision-making strategy. It's about the basic recognition that your life belongs to you, and that belonging comes with both a gift and a responsibility. The gift is freedom. The responsibility is accountability. When you make your own decisions, you own the outcomes, both the wins and the losses. And the losses, here's the part most people miss, are profoundly useful in a way that other people's decisions made on your behalf never can be. Your own mistake is a direct feedback loop between your choices and your reality. It tells you something real about what you value, what you misunderstood, where your reasoning had a gap. You can work with that. You can grow from it in a way that's precisely calibrated to your specific psychology and situation. Benjamin Franklin wrote, "Experience keeps a dear school, but fools will learn in no other." His point was not that experience is inefficient. His point was that there is no substitute for it. Here is why most people avoid this. Making your own decisions requires owning your own outcomes. And owning your own outcomes means there's nowhere to hide when things go wrong. When you asked 3 people for their opinion and then did what they suggested and it failed, you have a ready-made explanation. But when you decided alone and it failed, it's yours. Completely yours. That vulnerability feels dangerous, but it is the exact source of the power that comes from making your own calls. Oprah Winfrey, who overcame extraordinary adversity to build one of the most successful media empires in history, was told at multiple points by people in positions of authority that she was wrong. She listened, considered, and then made her own calls, repeatedly, against significant opposition. That compass is available to you, but it only develops if you use it. How to apply Law 10. Starting today, begin at the micro level. Today, make 10 small decisions entirely on your own. What you eat, what you wear, what you listen to on the way to work. None of these matter in any grand sense, but each one is a tiny repetition that trains your brain in the fundamental skill of self-direction. Create a 24-hour rule for significant decisions. When a meaningful choice presents itself, give yourself 24 hours of solo deliberation before making the call. No asking around, no consulting the group chat. Just you, the question, and time. Sleep on it. What you'll often discover is that you knew the answer before you started deliberating. Research broadly, then decide alone. There is a difference between gathering information and seeking permission. You can absolutely read, study, consult experts, and talk to people who have relevant experience. The outsourcing happens when you let that external input make the final call for you rather than informing a decision that you ultimately make yourself. Stand behind your decisions once they're made. People will disagree. Some will tell you directly that you made the wrong choice. None of this is relevant now. The decision is made. Execute it fully. Monitor results honestly. And be willing to course correct based on real-world feedback, not other people's opinions. Make your own calls every time. Starting today. Law 11. Work alone. Win together. The most important work of your life will be done in a room where no one else is present. Not because collaboration is overrated, it has its place, and that place is real and valuable, but because the work that genuinely changes things, the foundational, transformative, character-building, skill-developing, vision-clarifying work, happens in the private hours, alone, before the collaborative layer is ever added. The sequence matters. Get it wrong and everything downstream suffers. Here is what most people do. They skip the private foundation and go straight to the public presentation. They announce the idea before they've tested it. They form the partnership before they understand the product. They build the brand before they've built the thing. They perform the process without completing it. And they wonder endlessly why their projects stall. Law 11. Work alone. Win together. Cal Newport's research on deep work found that most people, in virtually any field, are capable of only 4 hours of genuine deep work per day before diminishing returns set in. 4 hours, not the 8 or 10 or 12 hours many people think they're working. The actual, distraction-free, cognitively demanding, genuinely productive hours amount to a fraction of that. The implication is significant. What matters is not how many hours you work. It's how many of those hours are genuinely, completely, distraction-free. And the only environment in which distraction-free work reliably happens is solitude. Consider Georgia O'Keeffe, one of the most significant American artists of the 20th century. After years working in the social, collaborative environment of the New York art world, O'Keeffe made a radical choice. She moved to the remote desert of New Mexico and worked alone. Year after year, in near total isolation, she produced the paintings that would define her legacy and reshape American art. Ernest Hemingway wrote standing, up, alone, early in the morning, before anyone in his household was awake. His rule was absolute. The writing happened first, in solitude, before any social contact or interruption. The sequence was non-negotiable. Private foundation first, shared life second. Isaac Newton spent 18 months in near-total self-imposed isolation during the plague years of the 1660s, and during those 18 months, working alone at his mother's farm, he developed calculus, formulated the laws of motion, and laid the foundational work for his theory of gravity. Arguably the most productive period in the history of science, achieved in complete solitude. This is not coincidence. This is pattern. The solitary work produces the thing, but the thing only achieves its full potential impact when it meets the world. When you finish the book, publish it. When you build the company, bring on the team. When the work is complete, celebrate it. The sequence: alone first, together second. Both halves are essential. How to apply Law 11. Starting today, launch your most important project in complete privacy. Tell no one. Set up no accountability partner. Just start. Work on it alone in your sacred hour, with the door closed and the phone off. Day after day, in the private dark, building the foundation. Apply the 80% threshold. Do not share a project, a goal, or a creative work until it is at least 80% complete. Before that point, it is vulnerable. not just to external criticism, but to the subtler internal shift that happens when a private endeavor becomes a public performance. Create a non-negotiable deep work session every day, a specific block of time, ideally 90 minutes to 3 hours, where you work on your most important project with complete focus and zero interruption. No notifications, no open browser tabs, no music with lyrics, just you and the work. This session happens before anything else, when possible, before email, before messages. Understand the winning together phase, because it matters too. When the work is complete, celebrate it, genuinely, openly, with the people who matter to you. The sequence is alone first, together second. Both halves are essential. The first half builds the substance. The second half delivers it. Work alone. Win together. In that order, every time. Law 12. Disappear, then emerge unstoppable. There is a moment in the life of every butterfly that the world never celebrates. Not the emergence. That gets celebrated. The stunning, almost miraculous moment when the creature breaks through the surface of the cocoon, unfolds wings that seem impossibly beautiful given everything that came before, and rises into open air for the first time. That moment gets the gasps, the photographs, the wonder. But there is another moment, longer, darker, stranger, and infinitely more important. The moment when the caterpillar, sealed inside the cocoon in complete darkness and complete silence, dissolves, not metaphorically, literally. The caterpillar's body breaks down almost entirely into an undifferentiated biological soup before the new form begins to organize itself from that chaos. For a period that can last weeks, there is no caterpillar and no butterfly. There is only dissolution, darkness, and the invisible work of transformation happening at the deepest possible level. No one sees this. No one claps for it. There are no likes for the moment of dissolution. The cocoon receives no encouragement. The darkness gets no credit. And yet, that invisible period is the entire reason the butterfly exists. Without the dissolution, there is no emergence. Without the darkness, there are no wings. Law 12, disappear, then emerge unstoppable. This is the most powerful law in this book, because it is the one that makes all the others possible. Here is what happens to most people who discover the principles in Laws 1 through 11 and begin genuinely applying them. They start strong, the momentum is real, and then, inevitably, someone notices. And in that moment of being seen, something subtle but critical happens. They come out of the cocoon too early. They start talking about the transformation before it's complete. They start showing the half-formed wings before they can actually carry weight. And the protected private process that was producing the real change gets interrupted. You cannot rush a transformation. You can only protect it. Consider the story of Ulysses S. Grant, a man who, by his mid-30s, had experienced spectacular public failure. Dismissed from the military, failed at farming, failed at business. By 1860, he was working as a clerk in his family's leather goods store in Galena, Illinois, virtually anonymous. He disappeared into that obscurity. And in that invisible period, something was happening that the world couldn't see. Grant was developing, through hardship and solitude and the unglamorous daily discipline of simply not quitting, exactly the qualities that would later define him as perhaps the most effective military commander in American history. When the Civil War began and Grant was given command, he didn't emerge as someone who had been waiting in the wings. He emerged as someone who had been forged in them. The years of invisibility hadn't diminished him. They had completed him. Or consider Oprah Winfrey's years before national fame, years of real professional setbacks, including being demoted from a news anchor position in Baltimore because she was told she was too emotionally invested in her stories. That demotion redirected her toward the talk format that would eventually make her one of the most influential voices in American media history. She didn't broadcast the chrysalis, she just kept working inside it, and she emerged, when she was ready, when the transformation was complete, in a way that no amount of premature visibility could have produced. The people who change the world spend the years before they change it invisible, working in the dark, building the interior architecture that their eventual impact requires. You are in your invisible period right now. You may not feel like a butterfly in formation. You may feel like someone who is simply behind the people you went to school with, behind the timelines you set for yourself, behind the version of success the culture told you should have arrived by now. That feeling is the cocoon, and the cocoon is not failure. It is the prerequisite of flight. How to apply Law 12, starting today. Choose your transformation window deliberately. Set a specific, non-negotiable period. 90 days is the minimum, 6 months is powerful, 1 year is life-changing, during which you commit to operating in shadow mode. During this window, social events get selectively declined. Social media presence drops to near zero. Energy that was previously flowing toward appearance and performance gets redirected entirely toward building. Define what transformation means specifically for you, not in vague terms, in precise, measurable ones. What will your body be capable of that it currently isn't? What skill will you have developed? What project will be complete? What financial position will you have reached? Write these down. Put the paper somewhere private. Execute all 12 laws simultaneously. The laws are not individual practices to be adopted one at a time. They are an integrated system, and their power compounds when deployed together, every single day. For the full duration of your window, protect the process from disruption. As you develop, as your body changes, your thinking sharpens, your confidence grows, people will notice. They'll ask what you've been doing. The temptation to share, to perform, to be seen and celebrated, it will be genuine and it will be strong. Resist it, not forever, just until the work is done. You're not waiting to be seen, you're waiting to be ready. When you're ready, being seen takes care of itself. The 90-day challenge. Your transformation begins now. You have just read 12 laws. You've felt them. Something in you, something real, has responded to what these pages have been saying. Now comes the only question that actually matters. What are you going to do about it? Books do not change lives. Reading does not change lives. Understanding does not change lives. Application changes lives. Sustained, disciplined, unglamorous, daily application. Most people who read something like this feel inspired for approximately 48 to 72 hours. Then the inspiration fades, the old habits reassert themselves, and the book joins the shelf of things that were going to be different. That is not going to happen here, because you are going to make a specific commitment right now. Before you close this page, 90 days, that's all I'm asking. Not a year, not a decade. 90 days. One season of deliberate, focused, law-guided transformation. The kind of 90 days that will look back on the version of you who started it and barely recognize them. Here is your complete 90-day implementation system, law by law. Law 1. Stop outsourcing your power. Make every significant decision autonomously. Before any decision of consequence, observe your impulse to consult and override it. Track each autonomous decision in a journal. By day 90, you will have built a decision-making muscle that did not exist on day 1. Daily action. One deliberate autonomous decision. Every day, non-negotiable. Law 2. Build your empire in silence. No announcements, no progress posts, no working on something big hints. Your goals are sealed inside your private journal and nowhere else. The only evidence of your work is the work itself. Daily action. 0 public disclosure of active goals. 0. 90 days of silent building. Law 3. Claim your sacred hour. 90 consecutive days without missing your sacred hour. 1 hour every single day before the world's demands begin. Track it on a physical calendar. Build the chain. Never break it. Daily action, sacred hour, every morning, no exceptions. Law 4. Stop running from silence. A minimum of 30 minutes of intentional, device-free solitude every day. 1 full solo day per week. Daily action. 30 minutes minimum of genuine, unmediated solitude. Law 5. Build the fortress. Conduct a full energy audit in the first week. Identify every significant drain and begin systematically reducing your exposure. Practice saying no to at least one thing per week that doesn't align with your transformation goals. Daily action. 1 boundary enforced, 1 energy protected. Every day. Law 6. Never reveal your process. Your routines, your disciplines, your daily practices, completely private for 90 days. No morning routine posts, no workout check-ins. Just do the work in silence without an audience. Daily action. 0 social documentation of your personal disciplines. Law 7. Stop watching other people's movies. Delete social media applications from your phone. If professionally required, access only from a desktop computer. 15 minutes maximum per day with a timer running. Daily action. 0 passive social media consumption. 0. Law 8. Become your own foundation. Identify your 3 deepest dependencies. Design a specific 90-day plan to reduce each one. Begin building your emergency reserve, even if the initial contribution is small. Daily action. 1 act of self-reliance that you would previously have outsourced to someone else. Law 9. Master the voice. Inside your head, morning declaration every day, 3 minutes, in front of a mirror, speaking your identity and commitments aloud. Evening evidence journal. 3 specific things you did well, written down before sleep. Daily action, morning declaration, plus evening evidence journal. Every day. Law 10. Make your own calls. Implement the 24-hour solo deliberation rule for every significant decision. No exceptions, no shortcuts. Stand behind every decision once it's made. Daily action. Every decision made through your own reasoning process. No borrowed verdicts. Law 11. Work alone. Win together. Identify your single most important project. Commit to a minimum of 60 minutes of deep, solo, distraction-free work on that project every day for 90 days. No sharing until it's 80% complete. Daily action. 60 minutes minimum of deep solo work on your most important project. Law 12. Disappear, then emerge unstoppable. This is the container that holds all the others. For 90 days, you are in the cocoon. You are not performing, not broadcasting, not seeking validation. Every morning you wake up and choose the invisible work over the visible performance. Every evening you close your eyes knowing that you built something real today, even though no one saw it. What happens on day 91? On day 91, you will wake up and something will be different. Not everything. Transformation is not magic. The work continues. The laws remain in effect. The disciplines don't stop being disciplines, but something fundamental will have shifted. You will feel it before you can articulate it. You will notice that the impulse to check what other people think has quieted, that the need for external validation, The hunger that once drove so many of your decisions has lost most of its power. That you feel in a way that is difficult to describe but impossible to mistake, more like yourself. Not a better-dressed version of someone else's ideal, not a performance of a person you think you're supposed to be. You, clarified, grounded, more fully inhabited. Your body will have changed because 90 days of daily movement and intentional sleep and removed digital stimulation produces measurable physical change. Your mind will have changed because 90 days of deep work, private reflection, autonomous decision-making, and disciplined inner dialogue produces real cognitive development. Your circumstances will have begun to change. Because 90 days of focused, silent, law-guided effort on your most important project produces tangible forward movement that was not there 90 days ago, and your identity will have changed. This is the deepest change and the most durable one. Not because you decided to change your identity, but because identity is built from action, and for 90 days you have been taking the actions of the person you are choosing to become. The person who keeps commitments to themselves, the person who works in silence, the person who makes their own calls and stands behind them, the person who doesn't need a crowd to feel whole. That person is real. They were always inside you. These 90 days simply cleared away everything that was preventing them from emerging. Your final manifesto. This book was never really about solitude. It was about power. The specific kind of power that cannot be given or taken, cannot be performed or faked, cannot be purchased or inherited. The kind that only develops through the practices described in these 12 laws. The daily, private, disciplined, unglamorous work of building yourself from the inside out. Solitude is the condition in which that power grows. Not because being alone is inherently magical, but because the noise of constant connection, the comparison, the performance, the approval-seeking, the spectatorship, actively prevents the inner work from happening. You cannot hear the voice that matters most in a room full of other voices competing for your attention. You have to step away. You have to go quiet. You have to be willing to look unremarkable from the outside for a period of time while something remarkable is happening on the inside. This is what the great ones understood, not the ones who were loudest, the ones who lasted, not the ones who were most visible in the short term, the ones who built something that stood. They understood that the world rewards results, not process, outcomes, not effort, emergence, not formation. So they protected their formation. They disappeared into it, completely and without apology. They did the invisible work for as long as the invisible work required, and when they emerged, when the cocoon finally opened, what came out was something the world had no choice but to reckon with. That is what is waiting for you. Not in some distant imagined future, not in the version of your life where all the circumstances finally align. Now, in the life you are already living, with the resources you already have, inside the next 90 days that are about to begin. The 12 laws are not a program. They are a philosophy. They are a way of orienting yourself to your own life, treating your development as sacred, your attention as currency, your solitude as laboratory, your silence as strategy. Practice them, and you stop waiting for the world to recognize your potential. You stop looking to other people to confirm what you're capable of. You stop needing permission to take up space. Make your mark. Pursue the thing that keeps calling to you in the quiet hours when the noise goes down. You become, in the truest sense of the word, free, not free from difficulty. The 12 laws don't protect you from hardship. They prepare you to meet hardship from a position of genuine inner strength rather than accumulated fragility. Not free from other people, but free from needing other people to complete you. And from that freedom, real connection becomes possible. Not the anxious, approval-seeking, performance-driven connection that passes for relationship in a comparison-saturated culture, but the genuine, chosen, mutually nourishing connection that only people who don't need each other can actually build. This is the life on the other side of these laws. This is what solitude, practiced correctly and sustained with courage, actually produces. Not isolation, but wholeness. Not distance from the world, but the capacity to engage it fully from a place of genuine power rather than chronic depletion. The only question that remains: you've read the laws, you've felt them, something real has moved in you, and you know it because you're still here. Now comes the only thing that actually matters: the decision, not the intention, not the inspiration, not the "I'm going to start Monday," or "I'll begin after the holidays," or "once things settle down a bit." The decision, made now, in this moment, before you close this page and the world rushes back in. Because here is the truth about readiness. There is no ready. There is no perfect moment. There is no version of circumstances so ideal that beginning feels comfortable and risk-free and guaranteed. The moment you're waiting for does not exist. It has never existed for anyone who ever built anything real. What exists is this moment, this breath, this specific, unrepeatable point in your life where you are holding these words and something inside you is saying yes, saying it quietly, saying it with the particular weight of genuine recognition rather than mere excitement. That quiet yes is the signal. It's the only signal you need. The path forward is laid out. The 90 days are waiting. The 12 laws are yours. All that remains is to begin. Not tomorrow, not after one more chapter, one more preparation, one more conversation with someone else about what you should do. Now, close this page, open your journal, and write down one thing, just one, that you are going to do differently starting today. One decision you are going to make for yourself. One conversation you are not going to have about a goal that belongs only to you. 1 hour you are going to claim back from the noise. One law, one day, one step forward into the silence where your power lives. The cocoon is waiting for you, and so are the wings.